Can you imagine 2 full families living in these houses? These are the final 2 standing tabby homes for the enslaved at the old Hamilton Plantation. This is one of the biggest plantations on St. Simon's Island, and today it's at work by the sea where people come for conferences and things like that. But right here, there would be 2 full families of African American Gullah Geechee people living in this small home right here. There is tours during the summer. They're not open right now, but if you want to learn more about sites like this, I'm an expert, I'm a local. I have a guide with over 150 sites, including this one, from Savannah all the way to St. Augustine. Just click the link in my bio to learn more. Let's get connected with our Geechee heritage at the St. Mary's History Walk. Of course, indigenous people were here for thousands of years, especially the more common people. They were here, they lived, they had their own lives and traditions and systems way before any European settlers came around. The Spanish got here before the English. We're right here in St. Mary's, right across the river from Florida. St. Augustine is where Fort Mose was. That became the first black city where if you were able to escape from up here in South Carolina and get down here, become a Catholic, become a Spanish soldier, you would get your freedom as an African. And this right here, Brunswick, Georgia, that's where I'm from. This is something interesting here. The Acadians actually fled from Santo Domingo during the Haitian Revolution and came here. Georgia was originally made as a buffer between South Carolina and Florida, and at first, there was no slavery in Georgia, but of course they couldn't survive or make money without African labor and expertise. Logging, shipbuilding, turpentine, those are some of the biggest industries here. And actually Jacob Joseph, from one of my other videos, he was a black man who was born into slavery and then moved down here after the Civil War to work in the turpentine industry. He ended up owning over 100 acres in this county and building the first 2 schools for black people here. I hate the way that they just call us black slaves like it's not 2025. I don't know when this was put here, but anyways, the British, every war, the British would say, hey, if y'all fight with us, y'all will get y'all freedom if we win. The Revolutionary War of 1812, and many people from here, Georgia, South Carolina area, have actually ended up fleeing with the British after wars to places like Nova Scotia, places like Sierra Leone, places like the Caribbean. It's a deep history there. Camden actually has the biggest of all of the barrier islands, bigger than St. Simon's, bigger than Sapelo, bigger than St. Catharines, and there's deep Gullah Geechee history there, but nobody lives there. It's just a national wildlife area. And this will be today, the Gullah Geechee people, the culture that has survived thousands of years. We still here today. Blending of African people, indigenous people, European customs, and I'm an expert on our culture here in Georgia as well as Florida. I have a degree in Africana Studies. If you want to learn more about stuff like this, I have a link in my bio for a guide of over 150 sites just like this, where you can learn about our culture, experience our culture, and just get connected to your roots. This is one of the most important schools for Gullah Geechee education in Savannah. This was the West Broad Street School at the William Scarborough House. From 1878 all the way to 1962, this school served and educated African-American Gullah Geechee kids from right here in Savannah, Georgia. I'm an expert on things like this. If you want to learn more, just click the link in my bio. I already did research for you. I got a whole guide. This is one of the most beautiful Gullah Geechee churches in my opinion. I'm at St. Cyprian's Episcopal Church here in Darien, Georgia, the second oldest city in Georgia. This congregation goes all the way back to 1873. And it's actually important as one of the largest and oldest tabby structures on our Gullah Geechee coast. Tabby is a syncretic architectural style that blends different types of Spanish, indigenous, and African knowledge to create this kind of shell structure. And this is one of the biggest and oldest ones on our entire coast. I'm an expert in our Gullah Geechee culture here in Georgia and Florida especially, and I've done all the research for you. If you want to learn, you want to connect, you want to experience, I made a guide over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Just click the link in my bio. This building used to be on the Negro Green Book. This used to be the Wynn Hotel back in the day of the Chitlin Circuit, a favorite of people like Louis Armstrong and Ray Charles. Click the link in my bio to learn more about historic sites like this from St. Augustine all the way up to Savannah. Why nobody ever want to talk about unity in the diaspora? This is a monument to Mr. Denmark Vesey, and he is an excellent, the example of unity and connection between not only African America, but the African diaspora as a whole. He's from St. Thomas, came to the United States in Charleston, ended up buying his freedom after he won the lottery, and then he organized thousands of African American people for a revolution And guess what? After the revolution in Charleston, the plan was to go to free Haiti and live there. Nobody can tell me we're not connected. Nobody can tell me we're not family, that we don't get along, because this is an example from 200 years ago. Now, if you want to learn more about stuff like this, make sure you follow me and click that link in my bio. I'm at one of the most important churches in St. Augustine history. I'm at the First Baptist Church of St. Augustine, going back all the way to 1872. And this church is actually the place where the NAACP Youth Council that led most of the movement for civil rights and equal rights here in St. Augustine was actually organized. If you want to connect more with our Gullah Geechee heritage and history in Georgia and Florida, just click the link in my bio. I already did the research for you, got over 150 sites from down here in St. Augustine all the way up to Savannah. All you got to do is learn and go. This is where we got 40 acres and a mule. I'm at the Green Meldrum House in Savannah. William Sherman lived here, and he invited Garrison Frazier and 19 other black religious leaders from the area to talk about what did black people need now that we were newly free. They said that we needed land and the tools to work the land. And that meeting is what led to Special Field Order 15, what we now know as 40 acres and a mule. After only about 2 years, the treaty was broken. We were pushed off of the lands that were former plantations. People like Pinpoint, St. Catharines, and Ossabaw had to move to the mainland. And people like Tunis Campbell actually went on to buy land. This is where a lot of the land ownership in Gullah Geechee communities come from. People who are on these lands, they knew better than to trust the government. They saved the money to buy it. I'm an expert on things like this. I've been to college for it, and I'm a native. I've already did the research for you. If you want to get more connected, I made a guide with almost 200 different sites from here in Savannah all the way down south to St. Augustine. Click the link in my bio to learn more. What's more important, education or money? I'm at the Kinlaw Rosenwald School in Camden County, Georgia on the Gullah Geechee coast. The black community here raised $909. The county gave them $800, and the white residents donated $150. Then Julius Rosenwald, as a part of his program that built over 5,000 schools across the South, gave them $1,000 to build 4 different schoolhouses across the county. This one right here is the last one standing. Me personally, I know that I am a person who is going to be just like Rosenwald, giving money to people all over the country, all over the world, to be able to build what they need for their communities. I'm going to be giving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in scholarships and grants and institution building and land back programs, everything like that. But my first initiative is this Gullah Geechee guide. Every site from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. I done did the research for you, almost 200 sites. Just click the link in my bio if you want access to our heritage and our culture right here, and go support. African people were sold in this square. This is Ellis Square, and it's now a tourist site. It's right by City Market, but this was actually the main site for the sale of enslaved Africans in Savannah. But it wasn't just for selling slaves. Black people, enslaved people, actually used this exact square where they were sold to maintain their humanity and autonomy by selling goods that they had grown themselves in the market. Places like this show the complexity of our heritage and history. If you want to learn more and connect with our culture and history, especially in Georgia and Florida, click the link in my bio. For early Gullah Geechee people, this marsh grass was one of the first sites of freedom. I'm at Fort Mose Park in St. Augustine, Florida, and for us, this is the southern end of the Gullah Geechee Nation. This is where people who escaped from plantations in South Carolina or Georgia came south, not north, but south to Spanish Florida for the earliest freedom. And this is the oldest black town, oldest Gullah Geechee town in the United States. There's no better way to find yourself and connect with your ancestors and your roots than to come to the places that are historically significant. If you want to learn about those places, I have the most comprehensive guide. There's no other place where you can get all 70 plus places in Georgia and Florida to connect with Gullah Geechee culture. If you're interested in that, click the link in my bio.
I'm by the river, whoa, tweedly delete. We come from down by the river, I'm drink it, blowing big ball, mad to that dank it, so yes,
This was the first school built in Savannah for black students. I'm at the Beach Institute, and since 1867, this school has served as a center for black Savannah. Today it's a museum and a cultural center, but before, this is where a lot of black Savannans came here to get their education. I'm an expert on things like this, and I've already made a guide with over 150 sites just like this from here in Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Hit the link in my bio. This is one of the oldest pieces of land owned by black people in the whole United States. I'm at First Bryan Baptist in Savannah, and this is one of the oldest, most foundational congregations in all of Black America. This church here has actually owned this piece of land since 1793, and we're in the historic Yamakar village community in Savannah where so much history lives. If you want to learn more history like this or connect and experience sites like this, I made a guide with almost 200 sites from here in Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Click the link in my bio. What history do you know of free black people in the Deep South during slavery? Most free black people lived in places like Baltimore and Maryland and Virginia up north in the upper South, but in the Deep South in port cities like Savannah, Charleston, New Orleans, there were free black people who lived freely among everyone else. This home right here used to be home to John Ballin. He was a free man 200 years ago, 40 years before slavery ended. But the crazy thing is, even as a free man, he had to have his home purchased by a white legal guardian because black people couldn't own property. I'm an expert in things like this, especially in Georgia and Florida Gullah Geechee culture. And if you want to learn more or connect and experience our culture, click the link in my bio. This whole city got burned down by black soldiers. I'm in Darien, Georgia. This is the second oldest city in Georgia after Savannah. In 1863, at the height of the Civil War, the 54th Massachusetts and the 2nd Carolina Volunteers, 2 black regiments in the Union, actually burned this whole city down. Most of the 500 residents of the city had already fled, and the 2 black regiments were stationed right across the water at St. Simon's. Their general instructed them to come here and burn everything down, and that's exactly what they did. It was controversial, but I bet it actually kind of felt a little bit good to know that they could just have so much freedom and almost like a rage room. This whole city was turned into a rage room. If you want to learn more about the history of places like this on our Gullah Geechee coast in Georgia and Florida, I already did all the research for you. I got a whole guide over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Just hit the link in my bio. I got you. This is the historic Gullah Geechee Church in Clarence Thomas's childhood neighborhood. This is Sweetfield of Eden Baptist Church in the Pinpoint community outside of Savannah. Sweetfield of Eden actually started as Hinder Me Not on Ossabaw Island, but as we were displaced from our lands on the islands, we came to mainland communities like this, and Pinpoint is actually right on the marsh. People still worked in seafood industries such as the A.S. Varney Sons, which now their old factory is operating as the Pinpoint Heritage Museum. If you want to learn more about stuff like this or connect more with these sites, just click the link in my bio. I already did all the research for you, and I have a guide. Out of all of the crazy stuff in our history, the Weeping Tom has to be one of the worst ones. Over 400 people from right here where I'm from, on the Gullah Geechee coast in South Georgia, McIntosh, and Glenn counties, over 400 people sold to pay a white man's gambling debt. Right now I'm in Darien, the second oldest city in Georgia after Savannah, and the people from this Weeping Tom event actually came from right over here at Butler Island and down this way on St. Simon's Island. The Hampton Plantation where they came from is now a white neighborhood and a golf course. The Butler Island Plantation is just kind of more so of a nature preserve. I'm an expert in our history and heritage right here on our Georgia and Florida Gullah Geechee coast. I've already did all the research for you, over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Just hit the link in my bio. And if you're a business or you're a museum or school, you need somebody to come speak, you need employee training, you need an audit on your materials, anything of that nature, let me know. I have a degree in Africana Studies. I'm a Gullah Geechee native. I create content, I do innovative education. I can take you a tour to Sapelo Island, our last saltwater Geechee community. Whatever you need, I'm the person to call. This was the first hospital for black people in Jacksonville. I'm at the old Brewster Hospital in historic La Villa, and this opened in 1901 as the first hospital that served the black residents of Jacksonville. Before that, you had to just get it how you live, man. And in the first year that they was open, they made 1,230 house calls. So it was always a demand, but it wasn't access. And the old Brewster Hospital gave access to our people. If you want to learn more and connect with sites like this in Savannah, and Jacksonville, and Brunswick, St. Simon, St. Augustine, anywhere on the Georgia, Florida, Gullah Geechee coast, I got you. I did the research. I got over 150 sites mapped out in my guide. Just hit the link in my bio. I'm here at Fort Mose, the oldest black town in America. Fort Mose in St. Augustine was a place where people who had freed themselves from slavery in places like South Carolina or Georgia or even North Carolina could come south into Spanish Florida to Fort Mose and live freely. Fort Mose isn't just a place of freedom, but it's also an example of synchronicities between West African, Central African, and indigenous cultures.
Hello there.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
If you'd like to learn more about Fort Mose or connecting with Geechee culture in Florida and Georgia, click the link in my bio for my free guide. I'm at the oldest HBCU in Florida, one of only 2 HBCUs in the whole Gullah Geechee nation. Edward Waters University, founded in 1866 by the AME Church. And to this day, it's a center of education for not only Gullah Geechee people, but people from all over the country. If you're an alumni, let me know some of your memories from here. And if you want to learn more about Gullah Geechee history and culture from St. Augustine and Jacksonville all the way up to Savannah, just click the link in my bio. These projects in Savannah is built after a plantation. I'm in Yamakar Village in Savannah, an old indigenous settlement, a long-time Gullah Geechee settlement. And this building right here was the administration building that was actually built in honor of the Hermitage Plantation. This is supposed to look like the Hermitage Plantation. So in a sense, what are all of these? Are they the cabins? But you can see how right here, the development and the growth of Savannah is further encroaching. You see how stuff is boarded up and people don't even really know what's going to be happening to them or their home. If you want to get connected and learn more or even experience Gullah Geechee culture in places like this in Georgia and Florida, I actually made a guide with almost 200 different sites. Just click the link in my bio. This church burned down and the only thing that was left was the pulpit. I'm at First African Baptist in St. Mary's on the Georgia Gullah Geechee coast. And if you want to learn more about different churches and museums and schools on our coast from Georgia and Florida, I've already did the research for you. Over 150 sites just like this one from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Just click the link in my bio. This house tells 2 sides to 1 story. It's best known for being the home to Dr. Robert B. Halens, the most important leader in the civil rights movement here in St. Augustine, also one of the first black dentists in the city. But before that, it was actually the home that grew a judge who actually fought to keep segregation in place right here in Florida. So this house holds the history of people who fought for and against civil rights. If you're interested in learning over 150 different sites like this from St. Augustine all the way up to Savannah, click the link in my bio. I got you. I already did the research. I'm at the oldest HBCU in Georgia and one of only 2 HBCUs in the whole Gullah Geechee nation. I'm at Savannah State University going back to 1890. This school has over 130 years of African American Gullah Geechee education right here in the Geechee capital, Savannah. I'm a Gullah Geechee native from Brunswick, and I went to Georgia State and got my degree in Africana Studies. I'm an expert in our history and heritage down here in Georgia and Florida. I did all the research for you. If you want to get more connected or experience our culture, click the link in my bio. This building saw both sides of our history. This is the Mont Millen building, right across from Ellis Square. This is where enslaved African people, our ancestors, were held, bought, and sold right here in Savannah, Georgia. But as soon as slavery ended, this became a school for those same exact people. It ended up becoming a school for us, and it acted as that until 1867, when the Beach Institute consolidated multiple different schools. I'm an expert on things like this, and if you want to learn more, connect with our culture and history, especially in Georgia and Florida, when it comes to Gullah Geechee people, click the link in my bio. I did the research for you. I have a full guide with almost 200 different sites. This community got their 40 acres and a mule, and then it was taken away. Outside of Nicholson Borough Baptist Church, outside of Savannah in the Silver Bluff, Coffee Bluff area. And this congregation and this community is an example of the broken treaty of Special Field Order 15, as well as the leadership of Tunis Campbell. Special Field Order 15 gave us land down the coast from Charleston down to Jacksonville. 40 acres and a mule is what we remember it as today. And these people actually got that land on St. Catherine's Island. But after the Confederates were able to come back, they were pushed off of that land, and now they settled here on the mainland, becoming freshwater Geechees. You can see here Tunis Campbell was probably the most powerful black leader in history. He had land ownership, armed self-defense, political power, self-sufficiency, all of those things right here in this land. And even after they were pushed off of St. Catherine's, he set up shop and owned land in McIntosh County before they killed him with the courts, and he ended up moving back up north after going to prison. I'm an expert in things like this. If you want to learn more, I already did the research for you. Over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. Just click the link in my bio. Did you know it was Haitian people in the Revolutionary War? This monument in Savannah is to the Haitian soldiers who fought in the Revolutionary War on the side of the Americans. But one thing this monument doesn't mention is there were a lot of Gullah Geechee African American people who fought on the side of the British. Those of us who fought with the English actually were promised our freedom, and those are the biggest groups of African Americans to ever leave the U.S. Those who fled with the English, places like Nova Scotia, the Caribbean, and even Sierra Leone. I'm a Gullah Geechee native and an expert in things like this. I actually made a guide for people who want to learn and connect, so click the link in my bio. This is my favorite leader in our whole history. There was a lot of different people during the Reconstruction era, Civil Rights era, who had power and influence, but not many people can compare to Tunis Campbell, but yet nobody really knows about him. Tunis Campbell was born free up north in New Jersey. He was actually groomed to become a missionary to Liberia. He decided that he wanted to put his effort and initiative into southern people who had just got out of slavery. He came down here to the Gullah Geechee coast. He wasn't just an elected official while he was down here. There was many different Reconstruction era elected officials who had power, but the thing about Tunis Campbell being on the Gullah Geechee coast, he had isolation, he had land ownership, and he had armed self-defense. Eventually, they was able to kill him with the courts. They sent him to jail, the chain gang. After he got out, he just went back up north, but he's so important in our history. I'm an expert on things like this in our Gullah Geechee heritage here in Georgia and Florida. If you want to learn more, I already did all of the work for you. I put together over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. I'm right here in Darien, right up north from where I'm from, Brunswick. But if you want to hit the link in my bio, you can learn more and connect wherever you want to go. Let's go to the house that got us 40 acres and a mule. This is the Green Meldrum House. This is where Garrison Frazier and 19 other black leaders from the area met with William Sherman while he was stationed here during the Civil War. That meeting led to 40 acres and a mule and Special Field Order 15. Of course, the order was rescinded and we didn't get our reparations, but this is still a historic spot. If you want to learn more about historic sites like this in Gullah Geechee history, I have a whole guide with nearly 200 sites. Click the link in my bio. What would you have done in the Civil Rights Movement? And do you think you would have did enough to have a whole park named after you? Dr. Robert B. Hailing, a dentist and activist down here in St. Augustine, was probably the most important person in the St. Augustine Civil Rights Movement. Dr. Hailings was such an important part of St. Augustine and Florida civil rights history. This park is a great place to just sit by the water and reflect. Some cool art out here. And if you want access to this and over 150 other sites just like this, from St. Augustine all the way up to Savannah, click the link in my bio. There used to be a home here. This is home to the Robertson family, but when they sent their son to integrate a previously all-white Fullerwood school, their home was firebombed. These steps are the last things that remain. I know you want to connect with your roots on the Gullah Geechee coast, or you just want to learn more about our culture. I did all the research for you, over 150 sites, from here in St. Augustine all the way up north to Savannah. Just click the link in my bio. How come all of our communities have a First African Baptist Church? No matter what African American community you go to, there's going to be churches that are pillars of the community. Right here, I'm at the First African Baptist Church in Brunswick, Georgia. This congregation goes all the way back to 1863. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Civil Rights Movement in Brunswick, because a lot of people don't really know much about that. Right now from First African, there's this mural of Mr. Julius C. Hope. And Mr. Hope was the president of the NAACP here in Brunswick during the Civil Rights Movement. And because of him and others, their efforts, Brunswick was able to get away from a lot of the violence that we saw in the Civil Rights movements in other places like St. Augustine or even Savannah. In Brunswick, people were actually able to sit down with businesses and pretty much leverage our economic growth and the money that we spend here. And we just pretty much was able to use the threat of a boycott and economic reliance on us and our dollars to lead to integration here in Glenn County. If you want to learn more about churches like First African or people like Mr. Hope, I'm actually an expert on things like this. I'm a native of Brunswick, Georgia, and I just dropped my guide today with over 150 sites from Savannah all the way down to St. Augustine. If you want to connect and learn, just click the link in my bio. This Gullah Geechee community had their land stolen by the federal government. This church is one of the last relics of the Harris Neck community. This congregation was formed in 1867, and in 1942, the federal government took over 2,500 acres from 75 families, burning their housings down and kicking them off their ancestral lands. The people were promised that they would get their land back, but of course they didn't. In 1972, it went to the Fish and Wildlife, and it became a wildlife refuge. But just imagine the wealth and the life that would be here if those people still had their land. It's truly beautiful out here. It looked like heaven, man. Like I said in other videos, It's up to us to get it out. This is our land. I don't even gotta tell you, you could just see how beautiful the land is. And all those white spots over there, those are all birds. You can see on this map how they took the land, built that, as if the people's lives didn't matter at all. It's amazing what people can do to other people. I showed y'all the church earlier, and this is where the original one was, but it's part of the National Heritage Area, and nobody lives here on the ancestral land. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with a friend. These are the ruins of a historic sugar mill on the Gullah Geechee coast. I'm in Camden County, Georgia, right across from Kings Bay Naval Base on the Gullah Geechee coast, the coast of Georgia. And these are the ruins of what used to be a popular sugar mill, and it's built out of tabby. Now, tabby is a syncretic architectural style that blends European, African, and indigenous elements to build structures like these. And anywhere that you read about this site and the history, it's going to tell you about John McIntosh and everything that he did. They might even mention Thomas Spalding, but nobody mentions the most important people to this site, the Gullah Geechee people. This would not be here without us. This would not have ran without us. All of the wealth of the United States would not be here without our knowledge and labor. We are continually left out of the story, and that's why people like me get education and educate others. I made a guide that goes from St. Augustine all the way up to Savannah, almost 200 different historical sites, museums, churches, ruins like this. If you want to get connected and learn more about our history, just click the link in my bio. This is Black America's oldest congregation. This congregation is actually older than the United States itself, going all the way back to the 1750s. They first met on Silver Bluff Plantation, and once the Revolutionary War came, members spread out to Augusta at Springfield Baptist Church, as well as First African Baptist Church in Savannah. And this is really the home of the African American Christianity traditions.